Thank you, Victor and panellists. Let's welcome the speakers for the next panel discussion, Reimagining the New Digital Economy, New Frontiers and Innovations. First up, we have Chief FinTech Officer for the MAS, Mr. Sopnendu Mohanty, Co-Chairman, Blockchain Association of Singapore, Mr. Chie Hock Lai, Digital Policy Director, US ASEAN Business Council, Mr. Mario Masaya, Managing Partner, Grandall Law Firm, Mr. Henry Huang. Moderating the discussion is Ms. Ching Li Ling. Li Ling currently heads RHT Law Asia's financial services practice. She advises on acquisitions, capital raising, licensing, market operators and payment service providers. Her clients are financial institutions, fintech firms and entrepreneurs involved in a wide range of activities from trading activities, fund management, provision of custodial services, the issuances of crypto assets and the establishment of digital asset exchanges and payment platforms.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to session number 3, and thank you for the panelists who are joining this session this afternoon. I'd like to welcome Sopnendu, Mario, as well as Henry, and Hock Lai, who's joined me here in the studio. Before we start today's panel, we actually have a poll which we would like to share with the audience. Could we get the poll on screen, please? Yes, so the topic is reimagining the new digital economy, new frontiers and innovation. We'd like you to participate in this poll. You can choose one or more of the choices that appear on your screen. What do you feel will be the significant themes to transform the new digital economy in the foreseeable future? AI and deep learning, robotics, digital currencies, digital exchanges, Internet of Things, smart cities, and autonomous vehicles. Do share with us your thoughts and vote now. We'll give you a few minutes to choose. All right. Yeah, we see some of the responses already coming on. Now quite evenly spread across the different areas. Yes, so I think AI and deep learning is getting a lot of the votes, followed by digital exchanges, interestingly enough, Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles. Okay, when the poll is completed, I'd like to ask the studio to flash this on the screen. Okay, is this on the screen already? All right, so we see that AI and deep learning gets a lot of the points, followed by digital currencies, Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles, smart cities, digital exchanges, and robotics. As we move into the panel discussion, I'd like to do a very quick introduction to the topic of the ASEAN digital economy. Could we put on my slides on the screen, please? Okay. All right, we talk about how ASEAN is accelerating its shift to the digital economy, and everyone is talking about how we want to emerge from this COVID crisis and to really leverage on the opportunities in the post-pandemic world. The vision of ASEAN really remains free and open trade, greater integration of economies, right? And what COVID has done really is to accelerate digital transformation of the way we work, the way we live, with a lot more activities we see in things like e-commerce and digital services. The vision and the hope of all ASEAN countries still is that we would remain the hub of global trade and investment. So in last year's ASEAN ministerial meeting, there was the discussion of the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework that discussed a few exit strategies from the pandemic. And this included sustainability as well as digital transformation, which is the topic that we want to focus on today. And not more than a week ago, the ASEAN ministers met and had plotted out what has been called the Bandar Sri Begawan Roadmap that sets out the digital initiatives to boost the region's competitiveness, leveraging on new growth opportunities in areas such as digitization and sustainability. But with all growth opportunities, it has to be underpinned with very clear rules, regulations, infrastructure, and talent. So the vision of the ASEAN ministers would be by 2023 to complete a study on the ASEAN region-wide Digital Economy Pact, and with talks on the Regional Digital Economy Framework Agreement to commence by 2025. Now, digital economy agreements are not new. Singapore itself has entered into such agreements with countries like Chile, New Zealand, and are in talks with South Korea and Britain. The gist of these agreements really is how we facilitate cross-border trade, cross-border flows of data, how we facilitate interoperability between digital systems of two or more economies. For example, interoperability of trade settlement systems and payment systems. Cybersecurity, personal data protection, and protection of consumer rights is part and parcel of the discussion when we talk about integration of economies and the freeing up of borders. So cooperation and innovation in e-commerce and artificial intelligence are also the topics that are being discussed in this digital economy agreements. The idea really is how, as an ASEAN bloc, we can collaborate and leverage on technology to minimize development gaps, as we are aware that ASEAN itself is not truly homogeneous in the terms of its demographics, economic growth, financial inclusion, and so on. So how do we leverage on technology, right, to empower people with digital skills, to empower the more disenfranchised groups like women, youth, migrant workers, and so on? Today, we can't ask for a better panel of speakers to share their views with us. We've got Mario, who spent a bulk of his career in research and public policy. He's a digital policy director at the U.S. ASEAN Business Alliance. I'll invite Mario to share his thoughts on this topic and his hopes and aspirations for the time ahead. Mario, may I hand the time over to you?
Thank you, Lily, for the nice words. Maybe I will start with some introduction about U.S. ASEAN Business Council. So we are a non-profit organization that focuses on bringing U.S. sectors into policy discussion with governments around ASEAN to help to bring more business and more investment to the region. So we have about 170 U.S.-based multinationals that come from different sectors, from tech, from health, automotive, manufacturing, and others. So I started working with the council in 2014. I run the council's Small Medium Enterprise Empowerment Program, so SME program, and the program has benefited about 10,000 over 10,000 people, 10,000 entrepreneurs in Southeast Asia over the past 7-8 years. We also have an online training program, and at the moment we call it the ASEAN SME Academy, and we are actually training businesses online. So our members in the ASEAN SME Academy provide free online training for entrepreneurs. So if you're interested, if you're entrepreneurs interested, please Google it, ASEAN SME Academy, and then participate in the program. It's totally free. And since 2017, I actually covered broader policy issues other than SMEs empowerment. So I cover a lot of digital policy issues in the region. So there are a number of digital issues that I am looking at since then, which include data governance, e-commerce, SME digitalization, cybersecurity. I think some of the issues that the Paul just now lay out, like IoT and 5G technologies, autonomous vehicles, these are the things that I covered at daily life. So that's probably a little bit introduction of myself and what I do in the council. Now, I want to go to the middle of the program, which is the reimagine the digital economy. So this is a very catchy title, I would say. And I'm going to give you some of my observation, what has changed in the past 12 to 18 months since the pandemic. And I'd like to credit some of these observations from the recent Bain Temasek Google's report and also Facebook Bain report that just published recently. So two main observations from this report. Number one, we've already known, this is like a common knowledge that the increased numbers of Southeast Asian young population. So I just want to emphasize here that by the end of the year, 8 of 10 people, which is like about 78% of Asian population would be 50 years old and above. And this will be all digital consumers by the end of the year, which is like 70 more people in Southeast Asia. By the end of the year, there will be like 350 million of 600 million of Southeast Asian population, which will be digital consumers. So there's a lot number of people for digital consumers. So I think Lilin already mentioned that the pandemic has accelerated the digital transformation. So the changes that people were expected to take place over probably a decade just take place in a year, just partly because of the consumption habits brought by the pandemic, and this new normal resulted with new purchasing habits, new ways of discover products and preferences and expectations. So new customer way of life has emerged of this transformation, which includes some of these are not quite new, but it's been accelerated significantly. Number one is cash is no longer king. There were a point I remember last year when we started the pandemic, there were some thoughts about cash become king again, but I think it is after the 12, 18 months, we see that this is no longer true. And then e-commerce sales increases significantly, and businesses have no choice to other than to adapt. Consumer use online from discovery to purchase, not only to purchase or from discovery, but from end to end. So this is the some observation that we see. And I think finally, price matters, but quality and also experience, environment, social governance, ESG, these are the factors that consumers is willing to pay actually probably more expensive than the cheaper product if the product actually thinking about ESG. So one final note about the outlook of digital economy in Southeast Asia. So digital consumers have already gone through the hard steps of digital adoption. So they already learned to do the digital payment, like shop online, order food, and so on. They've experienced this use of services. It's very easy and very convenient. So shoppers, we found out that we buy more online, and they're not thinking of going back fully when even the pandemic is getting better. So now with this backdrop and great opportunity, we at the U.S. ASEAN Business Council have been working very closely with ASEAN governments to support, like I said, the SME empowerment, because the SME is the backbone of the economy in Southeast Asia. But we also work with the government to ensure policy and regulations in digital to support business ecosystem. So I think some of these digital issues that were in the polling, we were looking actually two main trends from this year onwards. I think number one, Lilian already mentioned about digital trade agreement. So this is not new for Singapore, because Singapore already has some digital agreements, but all over the world, we are advocating for digital trade agreements, and we know that this will help us to provide the right ecosystem for businesses to thrive. The digital trade agreement will provide a holistic approach dealing with a lot of digital economy issues and cross-cutting issues such as data flow, interoperability, and others. Now, these issues are new to consumer business and government recently, and even more accelerated by the pandemic. So policymakers and business are really thinking about how to deal with these issues. And the challenges came out of this digital economy opportunities. So we are hoping that with the digital trade agreement, a harmonized set of rules and dispute mechanism should be developed. We are seeing around Southeast Asia that policymakers start thinking about creating a different set of rules that may pose difficulties for cross-border commerce and cross-border business. So we are trying to build what we call a splinter net, where different governments and different policymakers are doing different things with this new set of regulations. The second observation is, and this I didn't see it in the polling, but cybersecurity issues is also the one coming up very importantly. And this actually cybersecurity and data issues underpin the importance of digital economy. And the polling about, I think the results about AI and deep learning, IoT, I think all of these are depending on also the cybersecurity and data governance issue. Cybersecurity issues in Southeast Asia, like I said, underpin or is the backbone of the digital economy as a whole. Data governance, we deal with data governance a lot these days. A lot of data privacy, data protection, cross-border data flow discussion about countries in Southeast Asia. And it's been there for a while, but I think the digital trade agreement will not only ensure the people of data, but also to deal with other data governance issues, such as data protections and privacy. So the role of and responsibilities of Southeast Asian governments on these issues, data privacy, cross-border data flow, will be key to ensure that not only that we get out of this pandemic successfully, also to ensure business can utilize the benefits of the technology and the data-driven innovation. And finally, on cybersecurity, I just want to mention that because this is not a new issue, but recently with a lot of geopolitical changes in the world between the US and China, this issue has been kind of revived, and we are seeing a lot more cybersecurity discussions, cybersecurity agencies around ASEAN, and then I think the visit from Vice President Harris to the region, to Singapore and Vietnam, again emphasized on the importance of cybersecurity. So again, how Southeast Asia governments respond to these issues will determine how business will operate. So let me just stop here for a while now. There's issues about the finance, but I know my other esteemed colleagues or panelists will touch more about that. So I'm happy to talk about more about these issues in the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Mario. At this time, I'd like our audience to please submit your questions for our panelists. Mario, thank you very much for that sweet and sharp analysis. Noted a few key points on how consumers now are more discerning, even in the digital age. They are looking at how companies comply with their ESG obligations, the importance of cybersecurity and data governance. I think these are all issues that the speakers that would follow would be very well placed to talk about. So I'd like to hand the time over to Sopnendu, who as Chief FinTech Officer of MAS has really put Singapore on the map over the last few years with how the Singapore FinTech Festival has become one of the global FinTech events. and also led the development of a few very key blockchain or distributed ledger technology use cases on a cross-border basis, like Project Ubin and Project Danba. Sopnendu himself is a technologist. I know he has also created a few patents of his own, and so truly a great fintech thinker. So Sopnendu, please share with us from your experience, your observations, where is ASEAN headed when we talk about the new digital economy, the new normal, and what are the challenges and your hopes and aspirations?
Sure. Thanks. Thanks for having me. Let me frame this as an infrastructure question, because for the ASEAN economy to ride on a path to get there, needs a strong, robust, highly connected digital rails. And to get there, there are four foundational pieces of infrastructure required. And let's examine how the ASEAN stands. First thing, for a digital economy to succeed, we need a strong, credible digital identity system, like SingPass in Singapore. Other examples, Aadhaar of India. I'm sure many countries in ASEAN have some form of digital identity, representing individuals or corporates. Second is having a robust infrastructure to move digital data or have a trusted data exchange, because the digital economy is going to ride on data, and the data has to be trusted, governed, protected, managed in the most efficient way, so that there's a level playing field for everybody to participate, inclusivity, so that it becomes the second foundational infrastructure for a digital economy to succeed. The third element would be how to move money efficiently in the digital space. How do we ensure that the highly interoperable payment system, not only within your domestic market, where you can move money between towns in the most efficient, safe, and secure way at the lowest cost possible. Good example would be PayNow in Singapore, where you can move money between two accounts at zero cost. Now, moving money within domestic system doesn't solve much of the digital economic trend. You need to operate across the jurisdiction, across borders. The cross-border payment connectivity becomes the third critical digital infrastructure which will drive the digital economy. Fourth is the power of consent, and this is critical policy implications here, and also about individual rights. So all of us in a digital world must have a power to consent our own data to be shared with third parties, and there has to be an infrastructure in place where each of us has an ability to authorize my digital data, the digital data I'm owner of, is getting shared with third parties with my consent. So this four big infrastructure must come together, and that becomes the bedrock infrastructure for a digital economy to ride on. And if you take this four elements and compare to ASEAN markets, you will see a different level of maturity in different countries. But to get to the end state, or the end state we are speaking on digital economy, all these ASEAN countries must come to a stage where all these four elements can interoperate. Just to conclude, there are other elements to think about, things like data regulation, things around data, around privacy, consumer protection, things around cybersecurity. Well, cybersecurity can be discussed to the length, but the real challenge is, do we have the right technical capacity and capability to manage the cyber issues effectively? And that has got two elements. One is the technical capacity. Other is the literacy among the people who are going to participate in the digital economy. And that's absolutely crucial. because if you don't have the necessary digital literacy, it will be hard for consumers to be efficiently running their business on a digital economy. Also, they may not get the best or leverage the best out of this new digital construct. And the last piece is skill set. We got to upgrade our skill set dramatically. The current skill set we have in this market is way short of what the market needs for the future of our digital economy. So that's the fourth the policy horizontal construct. And just sorry, I thought I will end with this, but I'll leave it with three more elements of future of digital economy. The future digital economy will end with three points. There will be a decentralized economy, which Hawkeye will speak perhaps on the blockchain side. There will be largely embedded economic construct, which means all our activities are going to get embedded on the front-end digital channels where we interact with. And third will be all green asset build-up, which means world at large is going to move the brown asset to green asset. And a lot of this will be in the digital space as an enabler to get to the green finance or green assets we are talking about.
Thank you very much, Swapnendu. Indeed, I think there are a few points which would very dwell quite nicely to Hoklai's presentation. I think a lot of what you've mentioned about infrastructure is really building up digital trust through digital identities, the use of trusted data, digital trust in interoperability of payment systems or trade settlement systems, and the ability of an individual to be able to exercise his rights of consent and authorization in virtual space, how all these should need to be built to form a steady, robust infrastructure for the future digital economy. The fact that skill sets are right now lacking and needs to be upgraded dramatically is something that is very clear to us all. As a matter of fact, I was just talking to Hoklai just now about how everyone needs to learn coding nowadays to really understand the impact of digital changes in the way we interact and the way we live and work. I'd like to hand over the time to Hoklai, who again, a very, very well-respected thought leader in fintech, both with technology skills and financial skills. Really under his leadership as well, Singapore FinTech Festival again got its global recognition and has now moved on to co-chair the Blockchain Association of Singapore. And blockchain in this area is so important as part of the future digital economy, because we're talking about the use of distributed ledger technology to build digital trust that replaces trust in human beings, trust in intermediaries, right? To remove barriers, to remove intermediaries, and to improve efficiency in the way we shop, the way we work, the way we study, the way we transact. I'd like to hand over the time to Hoklai to tell us more.
Thanks, Ling, for your kind introduction. I would like to address this question from the lens of financial services, which is a very important component for growth in ASEAN economies. Like 5 years ago, people asked me what's the impact of fintech on financial services. Then 2 years back, people asked me what's the impact of blockchain on financial services. Nowadays, people ask me what's the impact of metaverse on financial services. So I start with like fintech. Over the last 5 years, we see startups leveraging on new business models and new technologies like AI, cloud computing, big data, to change how financial services are being delivered. They started off with the intent to disintermediate traditional financial service providers. But we see that over time, the incumbents responded. So now it's more of a re-remediation of roles. And then we see that a lot of financial services now are consumed at the point of purchase, rather than traditionally at the bank branch or even at the bank's website. So this is sometimes what we call as embedded finance. As for nowadays, we see that blockchain increasingly gaining a bigger role. So I'll address this from 3 points. First, as an alternate infrastructure, because in the first phase of fintech growth, it is still very much delivered on top of traditional financial infrastructure, which very often are inefficient and costly. And Swapnendu very correctly referred that to, like, for example, to send remittance overseas, typically might cost between 6 to 7%. So I think blockchain infrastructure could potentially lower that. So, which is why a lot of countries are busy experimenting with on central bank digital currency, and China is even already piloting on that. So the first point is really like blockchain as an alternate financial infrastructure. The second point is blockchain assets as an alternate asset class. And especially over the last 12 months, we see a lot of institutions coming into the cryptocurrency space, which now is supporting the price. Bitcoin is, I think, is close to 47,000 US dollar now. But crypto assets are more than just cryptocurrency, because it could also mean tokenized real estate, tokenized company shares. So I think that space is now quite well accepted. What needs to be improved is really secondary liquidity. I think the third point is alternate finance, which some of us call it decentralized finance, whereby it's really, again, the narrative of totally removing intermediaries. But if you look at it a bit further, right, actually now the new intermediaries are the decentralized protocols. So it's again a story of trying to disintermediate, but end up being re-intermediated. So on my third point on metaverse, I would like to play a video first.
Magic.
Whoa.
This is unlike how we've seen people perform ever in the history of television.
It's freaking nutty nuts.
Fox is making television history and bringing you the world's first avatar singing competition. This is Alter Ego.
Look what we got here.
Why do you feel like you need an alter ego?
There's something about how I look behind this alter ego that I feel like it's held me back.
Lost dreams and second chances are reignited when singers from all walks of life become the stars they've always dreamed of being.
Look what we got here. What?
Growing up, people always judged me by the way I looked and the way I sang, but I realized I don't have to be afraid.
In front of some of the biggest names in music, will.i.am, Alanis Morissette, Rhyme, and Nick Lachey, as they search for the next generation superstar.
I can't wait to meet the human beings behind these alter egos.
An alter ego actually really helps me a lot in life.
I like the hair. Yo, do that again, bro.
With cutting-edge technology never before used on television, singers' alter egos will be transported through the lens onto a real stage with real backup dancers and a live audience.
This alter ego is giving you just the invitation to step out and be even more of who you are.
Oh, those avatars here?
Yeah, man, for real.
I think that's the beauty of this show is you have no idea what's coming at you.
Tune in for a special 2-night premiere of Alter Ego, where dreams become reality like never before.
As you can see, this is a possible glimpse of the future whereby physical and virtual are integrated. And it's really a mashup of social media, gaming, e-commerce, and even blockchain, because blockchain plays a very important part in a metaverse universe, because it can, in a metaverse, it can have its own economy. And in a metaverse, I think CBDC, or central bank digital currency, could be a game changer because it allows commerce to happen in a metaverse environment. So as technology such as things like AR, VR headsets, or even haptic suits, and even omnidirectional treadmills becomes a lot affordable, more people will be able to participate in this metaverse universe. And we already see a glimpse of that in the form of, like, I think in Epic Games, Fortnite, they ran a virtual concert, and for example, for this Ariana Grande, and they were able to garner 1 million participants in that concert. And the participants themselves can choose to be floating in a bubble as a different avatar in a very immersive reality. So we also see that Facebook has already announced that they are going to invest heavily in metaverse. They have this Horizon Workspace program whereby work can be brought into the metaverse environment. So what does it mean for finance? I call this immersive finance because financial services in the metaverse will be embedded, will be decentralized, but will also be very experiential. Like while you're watching the concert, and if you like it right, you can tip it immediately with maybe a central bank digital currency. And what does it mean for ASEAN? If you look at the game finance Axie Infinity, more than 60% of the users of Axie Infinity are actually from Philippines. And the developer team is from Vietnam. So I think the metaverse economy is going to be huge for ASEAN, and I'm really looking forward how financial services can adapt and blend into this possible new economy. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. What a tremendous glimpse into the future, right? Where we have virtual and physical mashing up. And I think it really serves to, bring out more of the human potential, right? Where, perhaps human beings are less inhibited by their human selves and can actually pour out their full creative experience and hopes into their virtual experiences. And in a way, life and experience is very much enriched in that way. So thanks for sharing that, Hock Lai. Very, very exciting indeed. We like to turn the time now to Henry. Henry is managing partner of Grendel Law Firm in Shanghai, one of China's leading law firms. And we know that China is really leading the world as well in many areas of tech development. They are far ahead of many economies, for example, in their research and development of central bank digital currency. Their population, I think, in terms of mobile usage of wallets and mobile payments is just proportionately higher than many parts of the world. But we also see the flip side of government regulations being targeted at technology companies. And so I'd like to maybe ask Henry to share his thoughts. Very interesting area to look at, a very interesting jurisdiction also, because I think China is one of the few countries in the world that's actually promulgated its own laws on blockchain. So a very exciting country to be in, and for me and my colleagues, we can't wait to be able to travel to China to explore and to learn. So Henry, over to you to share your thoughts.
Thank you, Li-Ling. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. It's a very unique experience to actually have a virtual conference with a very big screenshot of a already very big face. But thank you for the invitation. And today's topic is actually a very interesting one. We do see a lot of development in the digital economy in China. We also see a very, very interesting legislative development, in particular relating to data protection in the recent years, actually, after the pandemic. So I should click on my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this is my, I actually prepare a very simple PowerPoint with a few slides. I think the beauty of the PPT is that you can actually read them without listening to the speaker. So I will try to say something different. Of course, those that are in the PowerPoint can surely be shared. Feel free to share this PowerPoint with the listeners, with the audience of the forum. I think if you look at this slide, you would find that in the past, only very few months' time, we see a lot of development on the law as well as the regulations in relation to data protection and personal information protection. With the two key legislative development, one is on June 10th, we released the data security law, and on August 20th, to the very right end of that, we see the release of the personal information protection law. Actually, data security and personal information protection are somehow related. We can move to the next slide to see that. You'll see on the data security law, we do focus on several very key items. Although China has developed very, very fast on its internet-related economy. But if you look into the details of the data security law, we see some strengthened methods by the authorities on those market players. With the key thing, for example, we do now have extra territory application requirement. And we do declare, for example, the data sovereignty. We do need to classify, from a market player perspective, we do need to classify the data into the national core data and important data, as well as with other data. Of course, you know that the protection requirements of different levels of data are different. Go to the next slide. And the personal information protection law is another very heated, discussed topic now. It's not effective yet. It will take effect in another month's time, from November 1st of this year. And it's, again, if you look at the features of the personal information protection law, we see extra territory application. We do know now that the long arm jurisdiction concept is now implemented in China's lawmaking. Back in 2018 and even earlier, we have always been accusing some countries, in particular the United States, on some of the effects of its long arm jurisdiction laws and provisions. But now China is making a big move on its own legislation in this field. We see a lot of development starting from earlier of last year and the remaining part of the pandemic anti-COVID period. We see a lot of development on that side. And also back to the personal information protection topic, we do see some basic principles for processing personal information. Basically, the current overuse of the personal information obtained by the business operators in their provision of their business has to be rectified and corrected with this new law coming into place. The minimum sort of usage of this personal information would be a very, very key principle in protecting these personal data. And you can also see some other core rules for the personal information processing. For example, the express consent of the individuals would be one of the mandatory required compliance step towards the ultimate use and possession of that personal data. Again, on the cross-border provisions, it's a very critical point to those overseas operators that may have access to the personal information of China. And we tend to, the government tend to put on a stricter and a real sort of material supervision on the cross-border data protection. With a very simple presentation of what these two laws say, I think we need to come to some very important takeaways. For example, when talking about foreign organizations, how to deal with the regulatory requirements of these two laws, I would say, and actually all the compliance officers would say that they need to do much more detailed compliance review and analysis of their current business model to see whether there's a compliance gap. I would say that obviously there is, and a totally new compliance protocol probably may need to be established. And also, it's always important to put focus on the two very important principles of the data protection in this field, which is the expressed or notified consent of the person, of the individual, as well as the possession should be at minimum necessity level, which means that you cannot really overuse the data that you have. We know that when we talk about digital economy, for example, when we talk about the auto intelligence concept, the obvious development on the AI side would require the feeding of massive data. And the future AI development in China would need to take into consideration of the impact of these new development in laws and regulations. That will end my very simple and short presentation. That is my bio. You can easily get in touch with me. Back to you, Lili.
Thank you very much, Henry. And again, because of time, we weren't able to go through very much, but I think you've given a very good snapshot and a very clear alert to businesses that are doing business, with China. China is such a huge market. There would be provision of goods and services to China customers and so on. So businesses do be aware of the extraterritorial reach of these new legislation and do reach out to us and to Grandall where necessary. We like to thank everyone for your time this afternoon. I think it's a topic that could easily take up a full day, but we only have an hour. I'd like to thank our panelists for your time and for your valuable contribution. It's an area which I believe we'll be talking about, learning and sharing for many months and years to come. So thank you very much for joining us today.